In the vast expanse of space, humanity finally received recognition from beyond their solar system. The year was 2157, and Earth had been developing its space technology for over a century. The message arrived through subspace channels, translated into all major Earth languages. To the representatives of Earth, greetings. The Galactic Council extends formal invitation to join our Federation of Spacefaring Civilizations. Your seat awaits. The news spread across Earth like wildfire. After generations of wondering if they were alone in the universe, humans had not only confirmed the existence of alien life, but were now being invited to join their political structure. Juhu Park stood before the mirror in her Tokyo apartment, adjusting the ceremonial uniform designed specifically for Earth's first Galactic Council representative. The outfit balanced Earth's cultural diversity with the formality expected at interstellar gatherings. Juhu had been selected after a rigorous global process that considered diplomatic experience, scientific knowledge, and adaptability to unknown situations. "Are you ready for tomorrow?" asked her assistant through the communication panel. Juhu nodded, though uncertainty flickered in her eyes. "As ready as anyone can be to represent an entire planet to beings we've never met." Behind the scenes, Earth's united government was having second thoughts. For weeks, their intelligence agencies had been analyzing the limited information provided by the Council. Something didn't add up. The invitation mentioned 37 member species, but Earth's deep space monitoring had detected signals suggesting at least 52 spacefaring civilizations in nearby sectors. During an emergency session that night, Admiral Hyun presented his findings. The Council's own historical archives, which they graciously provided, contain contradictions. Some species mentioned in early records are completely absent from later ones, with no explanation for their departure. President Do-Hyun Lee frowned. "What are you suggesting, Admiral?" "That the Council may not be the benevolent federation it claims to be. We need more information before committing Earth to their political structure." The debate lasted until dawn. Some argued that refusing the invitation might provoke a dangerous response. Others insisted that caution was warranted when the future of humanity was at stake. In the end, President Lee made the controversial call. "We will accept their invitation, but Ambassador Park will not attend this first meeting. We need time to understand what we're truly being invited into." When Juhu received the news, she was stunned. "You want me to prepare for months, only to deliberately miss the first meeting. They'll see it as an insult." "Perhaps," the president acknowledged. "But we've arranged something else. While your seat remains conspicuously empty, we're sending 20 specialists to Proxima Station under diplomatic visas. They'll work in various capacities: maintenance, cultural exchange, trade negotiation. Their real job is to observe and report back." Juhu understood the strategy, but worried about the risks. "If they discover our true intentions, that's why we need our best diplomat ready to step in if things go wrong," President Lee explained. "You're not excluded from the mission, Ambassador. You're our insurance policy." On the appointed day, representatives from 37 worlds gathered in the Grand Assembly Hall on Proxima Station. The architecture was breathtaking. A chamber designed to accommodate beings of widely varying biology and environmental needs. Some delegates floated in liquid tanks, others required specialized atmospheric bubbles, while many appeared surprisingly humanoid. High Counselor Day, the eldest member representing the Valiant Federation, called the meeting to order. His gaze lingered on the empty Earth chair. "It appears our newest invitees have chosen not to attend," he noted, his tone carefully neutral though his four eyes narrowed slightly. "Most unusual." Whispers circulated through the chamber. The delegate from Centaurid Prime leaned toward his neighbor. Typical primitive behavior. Perhaps they weren't ready for inclusion after all. What none of the council members realized was that humans were indeed present. In the environmental control room, Engineer Minji Han monitored atmospheric systems. In the translation department, linguist Junho Kim fine-tuned the universal translators. In the diplomatic services, cultural attaché Sunho Park arranged accommodations for various species. Each human on Proxima Station observed, recorded, and transmitted encrypted data back to Earth. They noted which species deferred to others, which were ignored, and which seemed to wield power beyond their official standing. 1 week after the inaugural meeting, Council Intelligence Officer Tejo summoned his superior. Something unusual is happening with the humans. Their absence was certainly unusual, agreed his commander. No, it's their presence that concerns me, Tejo explained. They declined their council seat, yet I've identified at least 15 humans working throughout the station. They're in nearly every department, learning our systems, observing our interactions. The commander's skin changed color, a sign of alarm in his species. You believe this is deliberate? I confronted one yesterday, a maintenance worker. Instead of appearing guilty, she seemed amused. Said something about preferring to stand and watch before sitting at the table. The commander stared out at the stars. In all my cycles, I've never encountered a species that declined a council seat to instead infiltrate our station through labor positions. What game are they playing? Back on Earth, the United Government reviewed the incoming data. The picture it painted of the Galactic Council was concerning. 3 founding species held effective veto power over all decisions. Several younger civilizations appeared to exist in what amounted to vassal states. And most troubling, there were indeed records suggesting that dissenting members sometimes disappeared from galactic politics entirely. We made the right call, President Lee told Juwu as they reviewed the findings. The council isn't what it claims to be. Juwu studied the reports carefully. So we continue our absence. For now, the president confirmed. Let them wonder. Let them worry. Meanwhile, our people continue to learn their systems, make connections with the more trustworthy species, and prepare for whatever comes next. As Earth's empty chair sat in the council chamber, a silent statement that puzzled the most powerful beings in the galaxy, humanity was already preparing its next move. The truth behind that empty chair would eventually shake the foundations of galactic politics, but not before Earth was ready to reveal it. Tejo walked through the bustling corridors of Proxima Station with a purpose in his step. The Arthian diplomat had seen much in his 63 cycles of life, but the human's empty council seat troubled him deeply. No species had ever rejected such an honor. The High Council demanded answers, and Tejo was tasked with finding them. Officer Tejo, called a voice from behind. He turned to see Counselor Day approaching. Any progress on the human situation? I'm pursuing several leads, Counselor, Tejo replied, his 4 arms performing the traditional gesture of respect. Their official explanation about needing more time to prepare seems incomplete. Indeed, the Council finds their absence disturbing. Some members suggest we withdraw the invitation entirely. Tejo considered this. Perhaps that's premature. Humans are a young species. Their ways may be different from ours. You always were soft on primitives, Day said with a dismissive wave of his upper right hand. Report your findings directly to me. The founding members are growing impatient. After Day departed, Tejo continued to the station's maintenance sector. His first appointment was with the Chief of Environmental Systems, a Draxian named Mool who supervised the station's life support. Ah, intelligence officer, Mool bubbled through his translator. What brings you to my humble department? I seek information about Earth and its representatives, Tejo explained. Have you had any contact with humans? Mool's skin rippled, a sign of confusion. Contact. Officer, I have 7 humans working in my department alone. Excellent workers, especially with atmospheric calibration. Tejo froze. 7? Here. Working under you? Yes, for nearly 2 standard years now. Did you not know? Tejo hurried through his remaining appointments with increasing alarm. The pattern repeated everywhere. The medical bay had 5 human doctors and nurses. The translation department employed 8 human linguists. The trade exchange had 12 human negotiators facilitating commerce between species. By day's end, Tejo had confirmed the presence of 43 humans working throughout Proxima Station, all while their official seat remained empty. In his quarters that night, Tahoe compiled his findings. The humans weren't merely present. They held positions, giving them access to nearly every aspect of Council operations. Most troubling was how long this had been happening. Some humans had worked on Proxima Station for 5 years, well before the formal invitation had been extended. The next morning, Tahoe requested access to the station's arrival records. The data revealed a careful, coordinated effort. Humans had arrived in small groups, never more than 3 at once, applying for ordinary work permits rather than diplomatic credentials. "They've been studying us," Tahoe muttered to himself. "All this time, we thought we were studying them." He decided to confront one directly. The maintenance roster showed that engineer Mina Kim was scheduled to repair a communication relay near his office. Tahoe waited until she arrived, then approached as she worked on an open panel. "Engineer Kim," he said formally, "I am Intelligence Officer Tahoe. I would appreciate a moment of your time." The human woman turned, seemingly unsurprised. She was small by Arthian standards, but her eyes held a sharp intelligence that Tahoe immediately recognized. "Officer Tahoe," she nodded. "I've been expecting someone from intelligence to find us eventually. You were quicker than most of us predicted." Her candor caught him off guard. "You admit to a coordinated human presence on this station. Why deny the obvious?" Mina smiled, closing her tool case. "Yes, we're here. Learning, observing, understanding. While your official representative refuses to take their seat," Tahoe noted, "this is highly irregular." Mina leaned against the wall, completely at ease. "You invited us to sit. Nobody said we couldn't stand and watch first. This strategy seems unnecessarily complex." "Does it?" Mina raised an eyebrow. "Tell me, Officer Tahoe, when your people first encountered the Council, did they immediately understand all the unwritten rules? The power dynamics, which species truly controlled decisions despite the appearance of democracy?" Tahoe's silence was answer enough. "Earth has learned from history," Mina continued. "Before we commit our planet to any alliance, we need to understand what we're joining. Not just what we're told in official documents, but how things actually work." "And what have you learned?" Tahoe asked, genuinely curious now. "That's classified," Mina smiled again. "But I will say that the difference between the Council's stated principles and its actual practices is educational." Their conversation was interrupted by Tahoe's communication device. Councilor Dad demanded an immediate meeting. When Tahoe arrived at the councilor's chambers, he found not just Dai but representatives from all 3 founding species waiting. Their expressions ranged from concern to outright hostile. "Explain this." Dai thrust a data tablet toward Tahoe. On it was a complete list of all humans currently on Proxima Station, their positions, and their access levels. "How did we miss 43 humans infiltrating our most sensitive facility?" "They didn't infiltrate," Tahoe explained. "They applied through proper channels, received legitimate credentials, and performed their assigned duties exceptionally well. There was nothing to flag in our security protocols." "This is unprecedented," growled the Zolvan representative, her scales flaring. "While we debate inviting them to our table, they've been examining our entire operation from within." "That's precisely their intent," Tahoe confirmed. "They're evaluating us before committing to membership." "Evaluating us?" Dai's voice rose. "The Council does not submit to evaluation by primitives." "Perhaps that's exactly why they're doing it," Tahoe suggested carefully. "I spoke with one of them today. They seemed concerned about the disparity between our stated principles and actual governance." An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. The founding members exchanged glances that confirmed Tahoe's growing suspicions about Council politics. "What do you recommend?" Dai finally asked. "Patience," Tahoe replied. "Expelling them would only confirm whatever concerns they have. Let them observe. Let them learn. In time, they will either join us or not based on what they discover." As the meeting adjourned, Tahoe reflected on his conversation with Mina Kim. The humans weren't absent from Council affairs at all. They were everywhere, watching silently from the shadows while the council debated their empty chair. It was a clever strategy, one that revealed much about human nature. That night, as he passed through the station's central promenade, Tahoe noticed humans in conversation with representatives from the council's newest and most vulnerable members. They spoke quietly, but their body language suggested an exchange of important information. They're not just studying us, Tahoe realized. They're building alliances before they even take their seat. The empty chair in the council chamber suddenly seemed less like an insult and more like a warning. Humans weren't absent. They were everywhere, gathering information while giving away nothing. And the council's high representatives were growing increasingly uncomfortable with the realization that they were being studied far more thoroughly than they had ever studied humanity. The emergency alarms blared throughout Proxima Station, their urgent tone cutting through the usual hum of activity. Red warning lights flashed in every corridor, signaling a crisis of the highest order. Council members rushed toward the grand chamber, their faces showing varying degrees of concern and fear. Inside the chamber, holographic displays showed the problem clearly. A strange distortion had appeared in space near the Cygnus Passage, one of the busiest hyperspace lanes in the galaxy. Ships passing through reported dangerous gravitational shifts. 3 vessels had already been lost, with hundreds of lives hanging in the balance. This anomaly appeared without warning, explained Science Director Junot, his voice strained as he pointed to the swirling mass on the display. It's growing at an alarming rate. If it continues, it will completely block travel through the Cygnus Passage within 14 days. Councillor Day leaned forward in his chair. What causes this phenomenon? How do we stop it? Unknown, Junho admitted. We've never seen anything like it. Our best theory is that it's a natural distortion in space-time, perhaps triggered by the recent supernova in that sector. The Zolvan representative's scales darkened with worry. The Cygnus Passage connects 17 systems to the Council core worlds. Without it, those colonies face supply shortages within weeks. Can we establish alternative routes? Asked another member. The nearest safe passage would add 46 days to the journey, Junho explained. Many perishable goods would be lost. Medical supplies wouldn't reach the outer colonies in time. The council chamber erupted into anxious debate. Some argued for immediate evacuation of the threatened systems. Others pushed for sending research vessels to study the anomaly, despite the obvious dangers. A few suggested using powerful gravity generators to attempt to close the distortion, though the technology had never been tested on this scale. We don't have time for testing unproven methods, Dai insisted. We must evacuate while we still can. As the debate grew more heated, Intelligence Officer Tejo sat quietly, observing the growing panic. 6 months had passed since the humans had left their chair empty, though their presence throughout the station had only grown. He wondered what Earth scientists would make of this crisis. Suddenly, the main doors to the chamber slid open. The room fell quiet as a human woman in formal diplomatic attire walked confidently toward the long empty Earth chair. Ambassador Ju Park had finally arrived. Rather than showing deference or offering apologies for Earth's prolonged absence, she moved with purpose. In her hand was a data tablet, which she connected to the central display system without asking permission. Ambassador Park. Councillor Day acknowledged, his tone careful. Earth chooses an unusual moment to finally take its seat. On the contrary, Park replied, her voice clear and strong. This is precisely the right moment. She activated her tablet, and the main display changed to show a detailed analysis of the anomaly, far more comprehensive than what the council scientists had compiled. What is this? Science Director Juno asked, studying the new data with obvious surprise. This is a complete breakdown of what you're calling an anomaly, Park explained. It's not a natural phenomenon, but a controlled disruption caused by particles colliding at specific frequencies, and we know how to neutralize it. The room erupted again, but Ambassador Park continued calmly. She gestured, and the display showed a detailed action plan, complete with the exact specifications for energy pulses that could counteract the distortion. "You've had this information all along?" Counselor Day asked, his voice tight with suspicion and anger. "We've been studying similar phenomena for decades," she explained, looking directly at the founding members. "Earth experienced a localized version of this distortion during our early warp flight tests. We developed countermeasures when 3 of our research vessels were nearly lost." She paused, letting her gaze sweep across the assembled representatives. "While you were deciding whether we were worthy of joining your council, we were determining whether your council was worthy of our full participation." The silence that fell over the chamber was profound. Many delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Taiho watched with fascination as the power dynamic in the room visibly shifted. "You withheld critical information while lives were at risk," the Zolvan representative finally asked, her tone accusatory. "No," Park corrected firmly. "We developed this solution in the past 48 hours, once we confirmed the nature of the anomaly. Our ships are already positioned to implement the fix, awaiting only council approval." She checked the time display, "which I suggest you grant quickly, as 3 more vessels are scheduled to enter the affected area within 6 hours. Councillor Da looked to his fellow founding members, who nodded reluctantly. "The Council approves Earth's proposed solution," he announced, trying to maintain dignity despite the obvious shift in authority. Park nodded and sent a simple signal from her device. On the main display, everyone watched as 5 Earth vessels moved into position around the anomaly. They released precisely calibrated energy pulses in a synchronized pattern. The swirling distortion began to shrink almost immediately. "The stabilization process will take approximately 12 hours, Park explained. "All ship traffic should avoid the area until we confirm complete neutralization. We've taken the liberty of sending warnings to all approaching vessels." Science Director Juno studied the data with amazement. "This technology, these calculations, they're decades beyond what we thought humans had achieved." "Perhaps your assessment of Earth was incomplete," Park suggested mildly. As the emergency subsided and council members began to relax, Ambassador Park finally took her seat, the chair that had remained empty for 6 months. The symbolism was lost on no one. "Earth will take its seat now," she announced, "as equals, not as junior members requiring supervision." Taiho watched as the founding members exchanged troubled glances. They had clearly underestimated the humans, and now found themselves in an unexpected position. The supposed primitives had just demonstrated technology and scientific understanding that matched or exceeded the Council's best efforts. "We welcome Earth's full participation," Councillor Day said carefully, "and thank you for your assistance with this crisis." "This is only the beginning," Park replied with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Earth has much more to contribute. But first, we need to discuss certain aspects of Council governance that we find problematic." As the session continued, Taiho noticed representatives from smaller, newer Council species watching Ambassador Park with undisguised hope. The humans had just demonstrated that the founding species weren't as all-powerful as they'd led everyone to believe. And if that was true, perhaps other elements of Council structure deserved reconsideration as well. The empty chair had been filled, but its message had already been delivered. Earth would not be a passive member of the Galactic Council. They had observed, they had learned, and now they were ready to challenge the existing order. The successful resolution of the hyperspace anomaly changed everything. 3 days after Ambassador Park's dramatic entrance, the Galactic Council convened a special session to formally welcome Earth. The chamber was filled to capacity, with representatives from all 37 member species eager to learn more about the mysterious humans. Councillor Day opened the proceedings with carefully practiced words of inclusion and partnership. His speech emphasized the Council's 5,000-year history of bringing diverse species together in harmony, though his eyes rarely met Ambassador Park's steady gaze. "And now," he concluded, "we invite Earth's representative to address the Council and share her world's vision for participation in our galactic community." Ambassador Park stood, Unlike the elaborate ceremonial robes worn by most council members, she dressed simply in a blue suit that represented Earth's oceans. She carried no staff of office or symbolic regalia. Her only adornment was a small pin showing Earth as seen from space, a blue marble against the blackness. "Thank you, Counselor," she began. "Before discussing Earth's vision for the future, we must correct the record regarding our past." She activated the display system, and a timeline appeared showing humanity's technological development. It differed dramatically from the records the Council had compiled during their observation of Earth. The Council believes Earth achieved faster-than-light travel in 2127, Park stated. "The truth is we developed working warp drives in 2097, 30 years earlier than reported." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Science Director Juno leaned forward, studying the technical specifications with disbelief. Similarly, Park continued, "Earth is not the resource-limited, scarcity-based economy described in your records. We achieved post-scarcity distribution systems 25 years ago." The timeline expanded, showing economic indicators that contradicted every council assessment of human development. Most importantly, Park's voice grew firmer. "Earth is not isolated to our own system. We have established peaceful contact and trading relationships with 3 species on the galactic rim." Images appeared showing humans meeting with beings the Council had never encountered. One species resembled crystalline structures that communicated through light patterns. Another appeared gaseous, contained within self-generated energy fields. The third looked almost reptilian, with iridescent scales and 6 limbs. "These are the Lumidian Collective, the Mist Consortium, and the Verex Republic," Park explained. "All thriving civilizations that have, for their own reasons, avoided council contact." The chamber erupted in shocked conversations. Taiho watched as the founding members conferred urgently among themselves. This revelation undermined centuries of council doctrine, claiming they had unified all advanced species in the galaxy. When order was finally restored, Councillor Dez's voice had lost its ceremonial smoothness. "These claims are extraordinary, Ambassador. Why would Earth deliberately conceal such achievements?" "For the same reason those other civilizations remain independent," Park replied simply. Observation. She activated a new display. To the horror of the council members, it showed recordings of private council sessions dating back nearly 50 years, long before humans were thought capable of interstellar travel. "This is impossible," the Zolvan representative hissed. "Our security is impenetrable." Park smiled slightly. "Clearly not. Earth has maintained an extensive information-gathering network throughout Council space since our first detection of your signals. We needed to understand what we were potentially joining." She zoomed in on one recording showing the 3 founding species in a closed session, discussing how to limit the influence of newer members. "We needed to understand the actual power dynamics," explained Park, her voice calm but unyielding. "Your official history describes the Council as a democratic federation, but our observations revealed it functions more as an oligarchy dominated by the founding species." The accusation hung in the air. Many representatives from younger member species nodded in recognition of a truth they had experienced, but never dared speak aloud. Councillor Dai struggled to regain control of the situation. "These monitoring activities constitute a serious violation of Council sovereignty." "Perhaps," Park acknowledged. "Just as your unannounced observation satellites in Earth orbit constituted a violation of our sovereignty. The difference is that we detected your observers within days of their arrival. You never found ours." An uncomfortable silence fell over the chamber. The technological gap was becoming clear to everyone. Humans weren't the developing species the Council had believed them to be. They were technological equals or possibly superiors who had simply chosen to appear less advanced. Science Director Juno finally spoke. "The anomaly countermeasures you provided. That technology alone is beyond our current capabilities. Why share it now?" "Because despite our concerns about Council governance, we believe in preserving life," Park replied. "We would not allow travelers to die because of political considerations. Intelligence Officer Tavo stepped forward. Ambassador, if I may ask, why reveal all this now? You could have continued your observation indefinitely. Park turned to face him directly. Because observation without action becomes merely voyeurism, Officer Tao. Earth has learned enough. Now it's time to effect change. She activated one final display showing statistics on resource distribution, technological access, and political representation across council space. The inequality was starkly visible. The founding species control 82% of council resources, while representing less than 5% of the galactic population, Park explained. Newer members receive minimal technology sharing and limited voting power. 3 species that objected too strongly to these arrangements mysteriously disappeared from council records entirely. The representatives from younger civilizations looked at each other, then at the founding members. The truth they had always suspected was now displayed with irrefutable data. Earth will not join an organization where equality is merely a facade, Park continued. However, we believe the Council can be reformed, with our help and the support of other members who desire true representative governance. By the session's end, the galaxy's balance of power had visibly shifted. The founding species representatives retreated into urgent consultation. Smaller delegations clustered around Ambassador Park, eager to discuss Earth's vision for reform. Outside the chamber, Tahoe caught up with Park. "You've changed everything today," he observed. "The Council will never be the same." "That was the intention," she replied quietly. "The Council has existed for 5,000 years. Officer Teo, it has done much good, but systems that don't evolve eventually fail. Earth is offering evolution instead of collapse." As she walked away, Tahoe reflected on the empty chair that had puzzled them all for months. It had never been about diplomatic hesitation or primitive uncertainty. It had been a calculated move in a game. The Council didn't even know it was playing. Until today. The 2 years following Earth's dramatic revelations were filled with tense negotiations. Ambassador Park led the human delegation with quiet determination, meeting with representatives from all 37 council species. The Grand Council Chamber, once a place of ceremonial consensus, became an arena of passionate debate. Earth put forward a comprehensive reform proposal with 3 core principles: proportional representation, technological sharing, and transparent governance. The founding species fought against these changes at every step. The Council has maintained peace for 5,000 years, Councillor Day argued during one heated session. Your reforms threaten to destabilize a system that has served us well. Served some well, Park corrected, while others have been relegated to second-class status. The reform debates extended beyond the official chambers. Throughout Proxima Station, species that had never spoken directly to one another began forming alliances. Humans facilitated these connections, drawing on their extensive network of station workers who had built relationships in every department. In the station's garden dome, Ambassador Park met privately with Tahoe, who had become an unexpected ally. "The founding members are planning to call for a vote next week," he informed her. "They believe they have enough support to defeat your proposals." Park nodded calmly. "Let them call their vote. We've been counting too." When the crucial session arrived, the chamber was filled beyond capacity. Species that normally sent single representatives had brought their full delegations. The tension was palpable as Councillor Day called the meeting to order. "We have debated these matters long enough," he announced. "Today we will vote on Earth's reform proposals and put this matter to rest." The voting procedure began, with each species casting their ballot through the electronic system. As the results appeared on the main display, gasps echoed through the chamber. Earth's reforms had passed by a narrow margin. Councillor Day stared at the numbers in disbelief. "This is impossible. We had the votes." "You had the votes you knew about," Park explained. "But during our 6 months of observation, we identified member species who secretly resented founding member dominance, but feared retaliation if they spoke out." She gestured to several delegations from the outer systems. "We simply helped them find their courage, and each other." The reforms began immediately. The council's structure was reorganized into the Galactic Assembly, with representation based on population rather than historical status. Technology sharing became mandatory for all members. Most importantly, all proceedings became transparent, with no more closed sessions for founding members. The transition wasn't smooth. The Zolvan delegation temporarily withdrew in protest. Several trade agreements collapsed and had to be renegotiated, but within 5 years, the new system began to show its strengths. Technological advancement accelerated as innovations from smaller species gained wider recognition. Economic growth spread more evenly throughout galactic space. The most visible change came when 3 new species joined the assembly: the Lumidians, Mist Consortium, and Varex that Earth had introduced. Their trust in the reformed system was perhaps the strongest endorsement of the new era. 10 years after Earth's empty chair had first puzzled the Council, the Galactic Assembly gathered for a historic ceremony. The Grand Chamber had been redesigned, with a circular arrangement of seats replacing the hierarchical tiers of the old Council. Above the chamber entrance, a simple piece of art had been installed: an empty chair cast in transparent crystal, illuminated from within. Ambassador Park, now serving her final term before retirement, stood to address the assembled delegates. Her hair had grayed over the decade of reforms, but her steady gaze remained unchanged. 10 years ago, Earth left its chair empty, she began. That absence spoke more loudly than any speech could have. It forced questions that needed asking. She looked around the chamber, noting faces both old and new. We left our chair empty not out of arrogance, but because we believe true understanding must precede meaningful participation. First, we needed to comprehend what the Council truly was, not just what it claimed to be. Then we needed to decide if we could help transform it into what it should be. Park gestured to the diverse representatives around her. Today, Earth stands ready to participate as equals in a truly democratic galactic community. The journey wasn't easy, but the destination proves its worth. No species stands above others. No voices are silenced. The assembly belongs to all of us equally. The chamber erupted in applause. Even former Councillor Day, now simply the Valian representative, joined in the recognition of what had been accomplished. As the ceremony concluded, Tahoe approached Park one last time. "When you first arrived, I thought humans were naive," he admitted. "Now I understand you may have been the wisest species to ever join our community." Park smiled. "Not the wisest, perhaps. Just cautious in our own way. Earth has a long history of rushed judgments and alliances entered without sufficient understanding. We learned from our mistakes." "The empty chair has become quite the symbol," Tahoe noted, gesturing to the crystal artwork above the entrance. "Future generations will study its significance." "Symbols matter," Park agreed, "but it's what comes after the symbol that truly counts." As delegates filed out of the chamber, conversations flowed in dozens of languages. Species that once barely acknowledged each other now discussed shared projects and possibilities. The Lumidian representative's crystal form shimmered as they exchanged light-patterned communications with a young Varex diplomat. A founding species member and a formerly marginalized representative walked side by side, deep in discussion about a collaborative research initiative. Earth's initially empty chair had indeed become the catalyst for the greatest political transformation in galactic history. The truth behind that emptiness: careful observation, strategic patience, and a commitment to true equality, had left the galaxy speechless at first. Now it had given the galaxy a new voice, one composed of all species speaking together. As Ambassador Park prepared to return to Earth for the last time, she looked out at the stars from Proxima Station's observation deck. The galaxy looked the same as it always had, but its governance had been fundamentally transformed. All because humans had chosen to watch and learn before taking their seat at the table. The end.